Welcome to the Rider's Edge podcast, a platform to share conversations about the health and wellness of horse and rider. I'm your host, Farley Schweigert. Hey y'all, it's Farley with Rider's Edge podcast, and welcome to a new segment I'm starting here on the podcast. I'm very excited about this. So, the segment is called in the Arena 365. So, let's talk a little bit about what this segment's going to be about for the podcast. I started this hashtag back in the winter, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever come up with. And I've blogged about it a little bit pre-COVID, and was really talking about my journey back into the rope pen, which hasn't stopped. It's just kind of paused and altered as life schedules, COVID, 12 inches of rain every 3 days has, altered things, as it does for everybody. And it may not be those things, but we all have things in our life that change up what we're doing or what our goals are that we have to contend with often. But anywho, in the hashtag in the Arena 365, it really embodies the journey, the everyday, the dirt, the grime, the hustle, the wind in your face, the sweat in your eyes, just the doing the little things and the little accomplishments every day. Because we don't live our lives at our goals, at our destinations. We live them in the journey and in the process. And that's what we have to embrace and enjoy. I'm still very goal-oriented, don't get me wrong. But we don't live at those destinations because those are very fleeting moments for us. And really what we have day in and day out is the process. So, let's catch you up on hashtag in the Arena 365. A little ironic how all this happened. As of this recording, it is July 5th, 2020. And my podcast for this week was about lower limb injuries in horses. I talked about suspensory ligament injuries and deep and superficial digital flexor tendon injuries. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that where it came up is my good friend Emmy is going through some issues with her horse, and we've talked through a bunch of things, and she's got a good program going. And I just thought about it for a while, and I was like, I wondered if people are a lot like me, that we know that that's a bad thing to have happen, but maybe we don't understand the anatomy and the process and the different options that are available. And what I talked a lot about in that podcast was having the knowledge and the information and understanding what's going on before you pile on the emotions of having that injury happen to your horse. Because if you go back and listen to that episode, this is definitely not a repeat of that episode by any means, but there's a whole spectrum depending upon the size of the lesion, the time that you catch it. There's a whole spectrum of things that we can do. It does not have to be a career-ending injury. It does not have to be an altering one necessarily. Now, it still does happen, and it happens every day, but there's a lot more rehab options and treatment options for that type of lesion. So it's ironic. I've probably mentioned him. I don't talk about him a whole lot, but we're going to talk about him a whole lot more. My horse, Charlie. Is a potential barrel horse, I guess is how I should classify him. I joke that he is a world champion mineral tub turner because that's where we got our start. Because it was so rainy and I just used what I had. And anyway, he's actually progressing a lot further than that. He's actually solid loping the barrels, and we're in that phase from loping to, adding some speed and getting better at those transitions of acceleration and deceleration there at the barrel. And for about 2 weeks now, he's just been off. He's not lame. He's not three-legged lame. He's not head bobbing lame. He's just off. And so I worked on him. I worked on him with my laser. I knew he had some back pain and some shoulder pain, and changed his saddle pads around. His saddle fit's pretty good. I would say it's in the kind of 70 to 80%. It's not 100% match, but it's a pretty high match. But I think come to find out that that's not good enough for him. Oh, I don't know why it's so complicated to run around 3 stationary objects, but it is. It is. Even though the actual doing it's not complicated at all, but gosh, it takes a lot to get that done. So, worked through that, had him chiropractored on, and worked through some things, and he was better. And he's a 16-1 appendix bred horse, and he has a super long stride. He's really starting to reach out with his front end again, and was really like I had about a week, and I was like, oh, we got this. We're getting going here. And then it kind of started that milly-mally off. And so for about a period of 4 days, I just racked my brain. I don't know if you have had this experience with your horses too. Is this horse off? Is he being a turkey? Am I not? Is it me? Am I not doing what I've already instilled in him? And he's confused. I mean, just every day, the whole time I would ride him. Is he off and hurting, or is he being a turkey? Just back and forth, just wrestled with it. And then finally, towards the end of last week, I was working him on a 4-barrel drill, and he was very compliant. He was not being rude at all, and he just felt I couldn't get him to stretch out going to the right. I could not get him to use his front end to the right more than the left. Again, it was super subtle. I mean, it was so subtle that I kept going, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? I mean, I recognize that I am crazy, but I usually keep it in check pretty well because I think we all have some crazy. It just depends on how we operate with it. And so I just, finally I was like, okay, enough. We're gonna go get this checked out again. And so I got into the vet that afternoon, and my vet, he's fabulous. Dr. Shaw at 11 Point Equine. It's a 3-hour journey to his clinic, and I got there, and we sent him around in the round pen. And I was like, I'm nuts. I'm crazy, because he didn't look off. He didn't look bad. I could see maybe a slight difference, but I didn't want to bias him. And he turned to me and he said, "Farley, he looks really good." I just stared at him through my sunglasses, and I was like, oh. But he gave me the benefit of the doubt. And 2 hours later, several blocks, some x-rays, ultrasound, we found a small lesion on the lateral aspect of his deep digital flexor tendon. And I just thought, how ironic is this? First off, I had relief. I had pure relief. Have you ever had that where you've just been mentally toiling through something, and then finally you get an answer, and it's just like, whew, relief. Now, I didn't want to have evidence that is the correct answer, right? I didn't want something to be found if there was nothing there. I didn't want to make something up, but we had evidence, and it took a good 2 hours to get all this done, to get this diagnosed. It took a while, and he and my second thought just made me laugh, and that's the birthplace of this segment of the In the Arena 365 was how ironic that that's what my podcast was on this week. Just trying to get more information out to Writer's Edge Nation and to my friend Emmy. And here I am with the exact same issue going on in my horse. And you know what? I didn't panic. He was giving me the diagnosis, and I had the knowledge that I had presented this week and learned about, and I didn't panic. And that was a great feeling too, that it wasn't that just, oh my gosh, my life is over, I've got to start over with a horse and blah, 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 blah. I just didn't panic. And so that's a great thing that's come out of this podcast, and I hope it has helped you in your journey, is learning these things, and then when it does happen to you, there's less panic. You're able to not go into that flight mode, stay in that reacting mode, and listen to what's being said and get a plan a lot easier. Because I feel like when it's your horse, there's so many more emotions tied to it than when it's your buddy's horse or, working on a client horse. Yes, there's emotion in that, and that you want to do the best for that other person, but it's not the same as your horse. You got to come home to your horse every night, and all of the toil and sweat and tears and jubilation and hard work you've put in with your teammate. So it's just different. It's just 100% different. And so that's why I really want to start this segment. It's going to be a random segment. I'm still going to produce the same content that I've been putting out every Wednesday, whether it be AM or PM. The last 2 weeks have been PM. My apologies. But so I'm still going to produce the high quality conversations about health and wellness for both horse and rider. But In the Arena 365 is going to follow journeys of real people. So we're going to talk a lot about Charlie or Chuck, depends on the day or what's going on. All my animals have many names. Many, many names. So, but I think that's going to help everybody to see somebody else in the trenches going through something. And I'll get some people on here to tell their rehab stories and kind of go through that part of it as well. Just because it's real life. It's real life and how you get through it, and the small things that happen that become big things for that day, right? When you do get to get off a stall rest and go back to hand walking, and when you get to get on the first time, and just small progressions through there and different things. So that's really what In the Arena 365 is going to kind of come around and be. And it's just going to be a random segment that I'll pop in every week or other week, however it falls in there. Just to kind of give you, hey, this is real life rehab and what's going on. So back to Charlie. Charlie has a small lesion that did not require any biologics. So we did not do any treatment with any of that when we were up there. He is getting lasered. I have a class 4 laser. So we're getting lasered every day, and I can still ride him at a walk because we did catch it that early. And it's nuts that I was talking about this earlier in the previous podcast for this week, that this is a hard diagnosis to get because of so many factors, of so many things that can cover it up. And again, like for Charlie, he was still very willing and compliant most of the time. It wasn't a hard no on anything I asked him to do, and it would come and go. And even in the exam, it would come and go. Like if as we gave him a little bit of rest time, while we're waiting on a block to set up or whatever, um, it would be better. Or even before we started blocking, we would work on something and then rest for a minute and work through some things and then go again. And it would just ebb and flow. And so it's a very hard diagnosis. And that's why it's not caught early often. Because of the way the anatomy works down through there, and that there's no standard pattern of lameness for having an issue through there. And it's just an athletic injury. And Doc had to tell me that a couple of times. That wasn't anything that was done wrong. It just happens. It's an athletic injury. As we've talked about, the way the anatomy works, and those are very long tendons that come down and attach through those bones in the lower leg. And very excited that I was able to catch it that early with the help of a great veterinarian who's a great diagnostician. We've got 16 to 90 days of lasering and very light work, and we're gonna get his heels lifted about 3 degrees this week to take some pressure off those tendons. So I've got a great team with my vet and my farrier, and we'll just kind of start putting in the work and going through it. He's been lasered 3 times as of between this podcast and when we were at the vet, and he licks and chews and just kind of relaxes into that when we really kind of get that honed in there on the lateral aspect of his right front leg. And so we'll see. I know the laser has great has a lot of research backing it. I've had great results with it on both horses and humans, and so we're going to keep working through that with him, and I'll keep you updated on his progress. So I started this because I wanted you to know that you are not alone in having struggles with your horse, having rehab struggles with your horses, having rehab struggles with yourself. I've been talking to some people, and they were telling their stories about if my Aussie is in here recording with me. She's a very loud sleeper, so if you hear her in the background, that's Allie. She's hanging out with us today. But I've been listening to some, reading some people's stories about their rehab on their rope and shoulders and the struggles they're having with that and things like that. And I was like, you know what? Let's widen our community so that people know that they're not alone in their struggles. When I work with clients in the clinic, and I see things that are the same for different kinds of issues, and I feel like people always let out a breath when I say, you're okay. This is normal for what's going on. Or I've seen this before. This is why this happens. And people just kind of, so somebody's struggled with the same thing. Because that's what we want. We just all want to, get to our goals. And it's just refreshing to know that you're not alone, that you're in this together with somebody. So I hope you find this new segment helpful. Like I said, I'm excited about it. We'll bring some people on to tell their stories and their rehabs and things. And I'll keep you updated on Chuck, on what he's doing and how he's progressing. And it just highly ironic. There's probably a better word for it, but that's the one I've used a lot since this has happened, that I put out that podcast and I get the same diagnosis. So thank you for tuning in today on this new random segment. Stay strong out there in the arena, and I'll see you down the road. Thank you for listening to Rider's Edge Podcast. For show notes and other thoughts, head over to ridersedgetherapy.com. If you would like to stay connected and continue the conversation, head over to my free Facebook group, Rider's Edge Health and Wellness for Horse and Rider. Thanks for continuing the conversation, and as always, I will see you down the road.